So this story isn't so much malicious as snarky compliance, but I still feel it fits here. It's also rather old, about 5 years, so some details are a little fuzzy, but I was recently reminded of it and felt like sharing. While I was in high school, 2 friends and I, who I'll call P and S, volunteered to take part in a MESA, Mathematics Engineering Science Achievement, maths test. We were all going for other projects as well, but this was the only thing we had together, since each math test was taken in groups of 3 where you could work with your partners. We each wanted to do well on this test, partially because it looked good and partially because we could, but none of us cared enough to do any actual studying for it. Day of the test comes, and we are sent into a pretty standard classroom with other groups to await beginning the test. Right before we are given the test, we are told how the test will be ranked. Top 3 teams would get medals in a ceremony at the end of the day. We were to be ranked by the percent of correct questions we got out of the number of questions we answered. Any ties would go to people who answered a larger number of questions, but questions we didn't provide answers wouldn't be counted against us. The test begins, and the 3 of us are glancing through the test to see how bad it is. There were about 50 questions, difficulty of which were pretty wide-ranging from stuff we learned 4 years ago to stuff that I wouldn't learn until college. My friends and I tend to be good at being lazy, so we are whispering to each other wondering how much we should bother when an idea forms. We can't help but start laughing for a solid 2 minutes, even getting one of the invigilators to come by and ask us if everything was okay, to which we just nodded grinning. We went through the entire test, ignoring any question that we even maybe didn't know how to do, and only giving answers to the questions that were stupid easy. Think x plus 5 equals 9 easy. Still giggling to ourselves, we hand in the exam, easily the first team to finish. Fast forward to the award ceremony at the end of the day, and we are each sitting together in eager anticipation. After showing the results of a few other competitions, the results for the math exam show up, and the 3 of us burst into uncontrollable laughter once again. Out of around a dozen teams or so, we got second place. Second place, all off the back of answering the most simple of questions we could manage. Our best guess for why we didn't get first is simply that someone else must have answered a larger number of questions, as the number of questions we answered was naturally rather small. We were so proud of how well our stupid plan worked for the rest of the day, and I still look back on this story with a smile. My wife and I have had this 12-year feud over the dishes. When I wash them, she complains I put stuff in the wrong spot in the dishwasher. When she does them, I complain that she ran the thing half empty because she wasted all of the space putting things in a certain area only. Anyway, recently she said to me, "Please put the saucer plates in the lower area." I said they are small and fit fine up top. She told me that if it has the word plate in the title of the item it needs to go below. I told her that was silly because we should do it by size. She said, "It's simple. If it has the word cup or bowl it goes up top. If it has the word plate, pot, pan, or jug, it needs to go down." I said again it really should be about size and not what's in the name. She disagreed. So I complied yesterday. I had a big mixing bowl that I would usually wash by hand, but decided since it had the word bowl in it, I would put it up top and force the dishwasher closed. I didn't turn it on because I didn't want to break the machine. But she went to go open it and pull out the top rack. It was stuck because of the bowl. She told me that it was silly to put that big of a bowl up there, but I pointed out that it had the word bowl in it, and her rules were it doesn't matter about size, only name. I had worked at a telecommunications store for quite a few years, and as someone who has worked in all sorts of retail, I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that telco has the worst customers, but every now and then you get back at the worst by giving them exactly what they want. We had a local small business owner that had several services with us: mobile phones, broadband, landlines, the works. He thought that since he had a lot of services it meant that he could do what he wanted and the rules did not apply to him. This included getting behind on his bills, complaining about late fees and absolutely losing it if any services were suspended or restricted. Bear in mind that this only happens after 3 months of overdue bills. If any of these were to happen he would stomp in, yell and carry on. Now in a lot of telco stores we are just that, stores. We can only do very little when it comes to accounts, especially business accounts. I know it's ridiculous, and if we had the capabilities to do even a few account things in store, it would have made so many people's lives easier. So we would process a payment and then call up the accounts department to reinstate the services or unrestrict them. One week in particular he came in all smiles and shaking hands. He didn't even mind waiting in line for the people in before him to be served. Normally he would storm up to any consultant, even if they were with customers already being served. I had the luck of being the first one free to serve him. He goes on a long speech about how he is expanding his business and needs several new phones for new staff he is hiring. I congratulate him and go about the process of getting them activated. We hit a problem early on. Surprise surprise, he has overdue bills and the system cannot apply new services to an account that is overdue. This does not mean a bill has been issued, it means it is past its due date. He is livid saying he needs those services. I get on the phone with the accounts team and they are willing to waive the default wait time of 3 business days after an account is settled before applying new services. He wasn't having a bar of it and said he wants the services and will not be paying a cent today. I inform him that it simply cannot be done, literally impossible in our system to do it. He starts yelling saying that he wants to cancel his services and take them elsewhere. I tell him that it is not something we can do in store and he will need to contact the business accounts department and they can assist him in moving his services elsewhere. He stomps off, and I thought this would be the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. The very next day, as soon as a store opens, he is there waiting, red-faced and on the warpath. Being the most senior person during the shift, I dealt with him. He yells about being on the phone for ages, being told they advise not to cancel, but to go to another telco and port his services. I'm guessing they didn't explain it too well, as porting means to transfer your services to another provider, keeping the same numbers, and having minimal, if any, interruption of service. I explained to him very plainly about what porting meant, and that all he needed to do was go to another carrier, sign up his services, give them the numbers he wants, brought across, and once they do we automatically cancel his services on our end once the other provider takes ownership. Simple, right? Wrong. He refused to leave the store until his services were cancelled. Time for my malicious compliance. While it wasn't something we could do in store, we had manual paperwork for lots of things in case of systems going down, compatibility issues, etc. So I go through our internal server to find manual paperwork for account service cancellations and print it off, filling everything out on it ready to go. I request 2 forms of ID which I need to photocopy that needs to be attached to the paperwork and get him to sign, informing him in no uncertain terms that if he goes ahead with this, his services will be deactivated within 2 business days and will no longer function. He was fine with this, saying once that happened he would go elsewhere. He signed and I went about contacting accounts, faxing the paperwork through, and they processed it all and forwarded me the confirmation for our in-store records. 2 days later, I once again opened the store and he is there waiting, red-faced, and the second he sees me starts screaming at me that none of his services are working and his company cannot get anything done, no phones, no internet, etc., and that he is going to sue us for lost income and everything else. I go out the back and pull out the paperwork, going over it with him, going over what I told him the other day. He no longer has any services with us. They are now cancelled, and he will be unable to sign up any new services or potentially reactivate any services until his overdue account is paid. I take him to a computer and try to access his account, showing him it no longer exists on our end and there is literally nothing I can do. He gets up angry, but defeated, and leaves yelling, "We have now lost a big customer, hadn't we already?" Epilogue. I talked to a friend of mine who worked at a different telco who ended up dealing with a business owner. Due to his services being cancelled, they were unable to port transfer his numbers across, since they now didn't exist, and to sign up a broadband service could take up to 10 business days to have activated. His business was essentially shut down for 2 weeks, and having to give new numbers to everyone associated with his business, because he didn't want to pay his bills, and didn't want to listen about porting. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, a like and a comment would mean a lot in YouTube's world. Share with us if you would have done things differently, and don't forget to support the original authors with an upvote. Links are in the description. Peace out, and catch you tomorrow.